Welcome to the next trip you're going to take. Have you ever packed for a trip and forgotten something essential? Yeah, I think we all have, but one particular memory I have is it was a business speaking engagement and I packed very carefully. I was driving, but I had handouts and books and all the PowerPoint and all the presentation things, and everything was all in order. Got in the car, got halfway to my destination, which was about a 6-hour drive, and realized I'd forgotten my hang-up clothes, which had my business clothes, the things that I was going to wear to look professional. And thankfully, those were actually easier to replace than it would be had I left off presentation materials. But I want to talk to you today about packing for the high road to leadership. Many of you have landed on this video because you have this packing list that you downloaded from my website. And if you landed here without the packing list and want to know what you need to take on the high road to leadership, go to beverlyspeaks.com/packing list to get your free list. My goal with making this is we all know that the journey in leading well requires certain skills. I tend to emphasize those that have to do with a high emotional quotient or emotional intelligence. But what I want you to do with this list is take an assessment, self-assessment, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 for each one of these items that is listed here. And I've got them in categories. The first category is the 5 essentials, which is your core values. Now, I know that there are literally dozens and dozens of core values, but since I got to make the list, I got to put the ones that I felt are absolutely non-negotiable in this day and time because things have changed. Things are different than what you needed 20 years ago to be an effective leader. Now things are changing. The first one I've listed is integrity, non-negotiable, right? Respect is on here, vision, your ability to cast vision for yourself and others, your wisdom, and your EQ. Your intelligence quotient, which is your ability to be aware of your own emotions and those of others so that you can manage yourself and develop healthy, enduring relationships. That's EQ. So now on each of one of those things, scale 1 to 10. 10 is you're knocking it out of the park. You feel super comfortable. You've worked on it. You've got it. 1 is major work needed here. So give yourself a score on those things. And then the next category is your attire. And of course, the brief story of how I made this list. I used to go to camp when I was in junior high, and I was a Florida girl going to North Carolina. So it was super exciting, and I was going for 2 weeks, which seemed like a long time. And they sent you a list of things that you had to bring and what you could not bring. So that's why I've added a forbidden thing, which I'll cover at the end on this list. But the attributes I've likened to the attire that you absolutely need. And I'm not going to read every single one of them, but I'm going to ask you with your list in hand to read every single one of them and rate yourself 1 to 10. How you doing? Consistency, focus, decisiveness, on down the list all the way to open-minded and dependable. So take the time, give yourself a score, and then when you get to what's in your pack, well, that's the explanation of rating yourself. Personal stuff is things like faith, hope, love, humility, authenticity. How are you doing with those things? And it's kind of a running joke when I work with groups on this list and we say, if you rate yourself a 10 in humility, what does that mean? I don't know. Maybe you better ask somebody else how humble you really are. Navigation is the tools like your compass and your mind map. Your compass and your mind map your compass is the direction that you're going. I've always heard it said that speed is not as important as direction. Make sure you're going in the right direction. How are you with that? Do you have a clear vision? Mind map, goals. Telescope is the big picture. And your Swiss Army knife is your all-purpose tools, which I would say this is lifelong learning. This is your ability to sharpen your axe regularly and how much time you invest in that. So rate yourself 1 to 10 on if you're equipped or not with those basic tools. I put in the optional list fun and music, but those are not optional to me. But you might have some things you want to write in that are assets, attributes, characteristics that you find in your personal life and the way your personality is structured are maybe optional to other people, but not so for you. And last but not least, there's the things you're not allowed to bring on this trip, and that's negativity, unforgiveness, and blame. Okay, now that and again, I know you haven't done it in this amount of time. I'm just giving you a brief overview of how to use this packing list. But now what I want you to do is, out of this entire list, identify the 3 things you need to work on most. And those will become goals over the next year. But then I want you to narrow it down even further and say, okay, what attribute, attitude, skill do you want to focus on getting better at in this next quarter? That one thing at a time. 3 is big enough to think about. The whole list, if you needed to work on everything, you can't do it all at once. That would be overwhelming. So you want to set attainable goals. And here's my last challenge. And that is to be accountable. To be accountable, first of all, to yourself, to put this list where you're going to see it every day, especially with the thing that you circled, number 1 thing you're working on, and then score yourself daily as to how did you do that day with enacting your new habits and behaviors that you're using to develop that attribute. And to take it another step further is to give the list to those on your team. Tell them what you're working on and ask them quarterly to rate you and to give you feedback. Give yourself, when you're an authentic leader, you want to be open to feedback. You want to give people the safety and permission to express themselves and to communicate openly with you. So I didn't tell you, but my name is Beverly Lewis. If you've got the list, you already know that. I am an executive trainer. And if I can help you any further with working through your own list, or even better yet, improving your skills and raising your EQ, that's what I love to do. And I can assure you that as we grow together and take this high road to leadership, that the best is yet to come. Thanks for joining me today.